Yes, hello, this is not a mirage. It is me, MrKraken, back once again from the abyss. And where have I been? Well, I've been in space. And this is where I've been launching from, the Kerbal Space Center. Yes, we're playing Kerbal Space Program. Naha! Now, this episode is going to be the extreme basics. We've started a new career. We're on normal difficulty, and we're going to do the very basic bits and bobs to get started with for the uninitiated. Maybe you saw the Falcon Heavy launch and thought, I can do that. And you can. In Kerbal Space Program. So let's get underway. This is what you're initially greeted with once you start your new game. You get Jean, who is Mission Control Guru, giving you some information, but we'll ignore that. So we'll go on a slight tour of Mission Control. Of the Space Center. Closest to you is Research and Development, where you get all your science. Basically, the lifeblood. Because without any of this, you're going nowhere, except up and down a bit. Over here is the administration building, where you can get grants and basically trade-offs. Money for science, science for money, reputation for... Yeah, all of that. Then we've got the Astronaut Complex, where you can fire Kerbals and see who they are, what their levels are like. Next up is the space plane hangar. I'm not going to click in there, but that's where you build, funnily enough, your space planes and your not-so-space planes. And then you've got this dirty little strip that is a runway, trust me. Over there is the the moon. That's M-U-N, not M-U-U-N. Then we've got Mission Control, where we get all of our contracts. So... at the moment, we can only take 2 because we've got to upgrade Mission Control. So what we're going to take first of all is gather scientific data from Kerbin. You can see here you've got the specific objectives. Obviously, with this one, there's only one objective. Recover or transmit any science data from Kerbin to achieve this goal. Now, to complete the goal, we get 6,400. Monies, occurs, I think. 1 science, 2 reputation. But then we also get these rewards. We get an advance of 2,240, and on completion of all of our objectives, even though there's only 1, we get another 4,160. So the only other thing to pay attention to really with contracts is the expiration. So we can leave this for 3 days and it'll still be there. There are some that appear and they're gone within 5 hours. So just be careful. Whenever you land back on Kerbin, have a look at the contracts, see what's available. So we'll accept that one and we'll launch our first vessel. Again, very simple contract. We'll leave the facility and we'll go... This is the vehicle assembly building where you build all your rockets, and you could probably guess by the fact that there's a nice little strip to take them out to the launch pad. And then when you inevitably lose them in space, or they crash land and bits are lying everywhere, you go to the tracking station. At the moment, because we haven't upgraded it, there's not much information to see. We can see the moon, we can see Minmus, we scroll right out. You can see Eve, Moho, Duna, Drez, Jewel, and Elu. And that is the Kerbal system. That's the star there. That is Kerbal. And we'll scroll in, boom. There we go. So there's lots to explore. And when there are things to track and whatever that all appear over here, you can hop into them if they're pilotable. Blow them up or recover them. I'll just turn flags on because we'll be placing flags eventually. We'll turn debris on as well while we're here, because normally what I'll do is I completely forget and I'll be like, why can't I see my flag? So we turn them on. Leave facility. Let's get our contracts underway. Get some science. Right. Hello, Werner von Kerman. He is our head scientist. Yeah. So this is the vehicle assembly building layout. This is how you build stuff. You've got your different sections for building a rocket. Up here is advanced mode. Now, remember sub-assemblies. Advanced mode, sub-assemblies. Remember that. We don't need them yet. Down here is how much monies you've got, how much your rocket is going to cost to launch, your center of mass overlay, center of thrust, aerodynamic. Basically, that really helps you not so much all three with rockets, but definitely for space planes. Main concern is center of mass for rockets. Symmetry for when you're building, we'll get to that in a minute. And then these are mods. I have got mods installed, and I highly recommend you get Kerbal Engineer Redux and Precise Maneuver. Those are the only two I really recommend you get. Others are handy. Some are visual, and I've got visual mods on. You'll notice my game looks different to yours once we start seeing things. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll start, as you always must, with a command module of some kind. And we've only got the Mark 1 command pod. As you can see now, Kerbal Engineer Redux has popped up. What I'll do is I'll get rid of that one. This isn't part of the base game down here. This is Kerbal Engineer. This information here is essential when you're building rockets. But like I said, we haven't got anywhere near enough power to get anywhere. We've just got a flea rocket booster in the engines. Fuel tanks, we got nothing yet. Command and control, we've got nothing. Structural, we've got a girder. Coupling, nothing. Payload, nothing. Aerodynamics, basic fins. We're not really going to need them on this. Not going anywhere. Ground, like landing gear, etc. Nothing. Thermal, nothing. Electrical, nothing. Communication, nothing. Science, we got something. We've got one scientific experiment. These two are both Kerbal Engineer. They're part of mods, so they won't be there on yours if you haven't got that yet. Mystery Goo Containment Unit. This is what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 4 around here. Why 4? Well, with Mystery Goo experiments, you don't get all the science in one whack, so you can't just activate that and you get all of the science. There's normally 2 or 3 observations you can make, and so we're taking 4 up so we can get 2 on the ground, 2 in the air. The reason why you can't just take the data out is because you need a scientist to reset them, and that scientist needs to be able to leave his command pod, but we'll get to all that, don't worry. Next, utility. We need to be able to come down to land nice and gentle, so we'll need a parachute. Now this is a nose cone parachute, and that will be more than enough to bring us gently down to the ground. Okay, so the next thing you'll see that's appeared in the bottom right hand corner is your staging. This is very important for launching, because you don't want to launch your parachute and your rocket at the same time. So we'll click the plus underneath that one and drag the engine into 1. So there we go. If you wanted to add any more, you can. You can add them anywhere. You can drag these around. And that's your staging system. Final thing, up here is crew. There will be another tab appear when we upgrade the vehicle assembly building and the spaceplane hangar. And that's for action groups, so you can have macros basically, assign hotkeys and things for functions. These are our current Kerbals: Bill, Bob, Valentina and Jebediah. We're not going to take Jebediah for this pointless flight. We're going to take Bob Kerman, who is our chief scientist. Well, he's our lead exploratory scientist. Chief scientist will be Werner von Kerman, I imagine. Okay, so we'll give this craft a name, and we shall call it Kraken 1. If you have any suggestions for the names of rockets, expeditions, stations, or outposts, please do leave comments down below with your suggestions, and we can make that happen eventually. Okay, so just there we go. Pretty little mission flag that I quickly made up. This is for the tutorial section. Once we're at a point where I can ditch the tutorial format and just give brief notes, that's when we'll get a new mission flag. Same save, but new flag. Okay. So, once it's loaded. Okay, so welcome to the launch pad. This is us, hidden away in here. So your new look at the at the moon. On the left-hand side here, the staging information that you can still swap around, add, move things around in there, just like you could in the assembly building. This is your stage info. Your pitch roll, your what stage is ready to be triggered, indicated by the flashing green. So we've got electrical charge, or it's, you know, basically you can stage. These buttons here, you can go into docking mode. That's for precision maneuvering and docking. And you can go to the map. We're not going to do that yet. In the center is your nav ball, your heading, your throttle, your RCS, which you'll use in conjunction with the docking mode, your speed. So we've got surface. If we click on it, our orbit speed is 175 meters per second. So that's how fast Kerbin spins. Sorry, that's how fast Kerbin goes around the place. SAS. We can't turn it on because we haven't got a pilot or a drone module. But that is stability assist system. Very, very handy. G-force, unless you've turned on G-force effects like Kerbal Blackout and things like that in your game settings, does not really matter. Right hand side, we've got our crew, and we'll click this little button here and we can see Bob. Hello Bob, how are you? From here you can view what he views, or she, depending on who's in there, and to get out of that again press C, or you can tell him to EVA. Ta-da! He can get an EVA report, which gets us 2.4 science. Then we go in, we will get a crew report by right clicking on the command module, and there we go. Now we're going to right click on one of the mystery goo containers, observe mystery goo, another 3 science, and then we'll get another one as we're on the ground, another 3 science. As you can see, there's still science available there. if we transmit this science, which we can't because we haven't got an antenna, we'll only get 1.3 of it. Whereas if we recover it, when we recover the vessel, we'll get 3. So it's always something to keep in mind when you're transmitting science. Crew reports and EVAs, if I remember rightly, will always transmit 100% of that information, which is good. But most of the other ones won't. So, one of the reasons I brought young Bob here was to show you that a scientist can collect the data. Yes, it gives us a warning saying if you take it out, it'll be inoperable. And then we just hit restore, and Bob has restored it. Now, we can't do the same with this mystery goo container because we've only got this for storing our experiments, and you can't store the exact same type together. So we can store another mystery goo observation from when we launch, but we can't store the same one from the ground. Simples. Hopefully you follow that. If you don't, never mind, go back and listen to it again. Right, so we've got scientific data. Oh no, we have performed an EVA. There we go. So we'll move back around here, sorry. Here's your basic information for when you're in flight, your alerts, your fuel, which you can click on and it'll keep it up. This is part of Kerbal Engineer. This is part of Kerbal Engineer. This is not. This is one of your main control panels. The abort action group. Remember I said about action groups? We haven't unlocked them yet. But I have never used the abort action. I mainly use that to cheat when I haven't unlocked custom action groups. I use that to trigger things instead. So this is our altitude above sea level. Very important to remember, above sea level, not above the ground. Because obviously we are not 69 meters above ground, but we are 69 meters above sea level. And then there's the atmospheric information. So the lighter it is, the thicker the atmosphere. Then when you are actually hovered over, you can go to the Space Center and leave this here. It'll stay on the launch pad, or it'll stay in space if we're in space. Recover the vessel. That basically just takes us back home and we get the science that we gathered, but we need to launch. Lights. Gear. We have no gear to deploy, but that would be the gear button. Or we've got G for gear on the keyboard and U for the lights. And then under those are the brake action group. Now, if you click on it, it'll hold the brakes. If you press B, it'll only hold the brakes for as long as you press the button. And last but not least for this GUI is this information over here. This is your satellite communications, signal strength, and all of that good stuff. You can turn comms network off in your custom settings if you want. I've left mine on. And then we've got over here universal time, year 1, day 1, 12th minute. And this is your mission time. We've done nothing yet, so it's from launch is your mission counter. And then we've got time warp, which you can control with comma and period, or full stop for people like me. You can only do a certain warp when you're in atmosphere or near atmosphere, but the further out you go, the faster you can warp. And that's the flight overlays. Let's take off, shall we? We will check our staging. Always check your staging before you launch. And hit spacebar, and that will fire stage 1. We will right click on our pod and get... Oh, we can't... see. Never mind. We'll observe Mr. Goo. Yep, thank you. We will observe Mr. Goo. Thank you. And we will observe Mr. Goo. Thank you very much. That's no moon. Yeah, I'm sorry, it is the Death Star, and it's beautiful. This kind of reminds me of Rogue One. Doop-a-doo. Whee. Tumble, tumble, tumble. If you're wondering, or if you so desire, you can turn off your UI with F2. I'm going to turn it back on, see how high. Okay, we're at 4,000. I'm going to fire the next stage, which will trigger our parachute. Now, it won't deploy. You can alter this before. You can't alter it while once you've deployed it, once you've staged it. But you can before you launch and before you trigger. You can change when it opens. So that's just open there at 1,000 meters. The minimum pressure at which it opens, the spread angle. You can cut the parachute if you want. Now, if you'll excuse me a second, I'm just going to... Oh, I can't EVA. We need to upgrade the Astronaut Complex. So we can only EVA while we're on the surface. For now. So, I'm going to warp down very slowly. I'm going to keep an eye on the shadow. And I'm going to stop it here. Warp can make you go kablooey very quickly. So, I always recommend turning it off when you're about to land and when you're pulling off maneuvers and things like that when you're flying. So, up in our alerts tab, we've got broken the speed record, launched our first vessel, and then a load of records, and we've returned to the surface. We've achieved our 2 contracts, so we will recover the vessel and get our science. That will give us the contract completion for the science mission. Lovely, 21.6 science earned there, so we got 31 altogether. Lovely. So we'll go to research and development and we'll unlock basic rocketry and engineering 101. So engineering 101 gives us communications devices in the Communotron 16 and 16S, a decoupler, and a thermometer, so another science experiment. That one does not need resetting. And the rocketry, we have got our first liquid fuel engine. Liquid fuel is great. We got our liquid fuel tank, and we've got a new solid fuel booster, the Hammer. We've still got science to spend, and we can get one more thing. So, what shall we get? What should we get? What should we get? Well, I'll tell you what we get. We'll get some more science. So we'll go with survivability and unlock the press mat barometer, as well as side-mounted parachutes, a service bay, radiator panel that doesn't matter, heat shield for re-entry. And there we go. That's that. We'll just clear away our alerts. And then head over to mission control. And we've got a lot more contracts. So we want to take escape the atmosphere. And we want to take orbit. And we can only take 2 at the moment. So we've got a mission to test the Hammer at the launch site. Haul the swivel. See, that expires in 5 hours. So we're going to take it into, basically take it into orbit, escape trajectory out of Kerbin. Or maybe, I hope that doesn't mean out of Kerbin's influence, because I wouldn't want to take that this early on. Okay. Now these observational survey missions are a bit mind-numbing, but I generally leave them alone anyway, unless I really need the money, and then I'll go and do them. Or we can do them a lot later with magic trickery. Okay, so we have 2 missions. We have Escape the Atmosphere and Orbit Kerbin. So that's what we're going to do next time. Thank you for watching. This has been the basics of Kerbal Space Program. Join us next time where we get into space, perform an orbit, come back to Earth or Kerbin with a gentle thud. I've been MrKraken. You've been watching Kerbal Space Program. If you've liked it, please like. If you want to comment, please leave a comment. Yeah. If you've got any name suggestions for rockets, missions, space stations, or outposts, please do let me know down below. Thank you very much. Good night.